Standing over her is Malaki, his tall frame cloaked in the faint moonlight filtering through the trees. "You need to understand," Malaki is saying, his voice smooth and composed. "This is how the world works. You can cling to your little village dreams, or you can rise above them. But you can't have both." Lina glares up at him, defiance flickering in her tear-filled eyes. The storm approaches slowly at first, with a low rumble that sounds like a warning from nature itself. Lina and Saida stand in the village square, their arms full of the baskets they spent weeks weaving. Around them, the vibrant market is alive with chatter and the colourful buzz of village life. But the sky grows darker by the minute, and the wind picks up, tugging at their clothes and sending loose strands of hair flying. The first fat drops of rain hit the ground, turning the air cold and damp. Lina glances at Saida, who is distractedly rearranging the baskets on their stall. "Saida, we need to leave now," she says, her voice urgent. But Saida doesn't move. Her mind seems far away, perhaps still caught in the heated argument they had earlier. Thunder crashes overhead, making them both flinch. The villagers around them start packing up their goods in a panic, shouting instructions to one another as they run for shelter. Lina grabs Saida's arm. "Saida, now!" she shouts, her voice barely audible over the roar of the wind. They race through the narrow streets, their feet slipping on the muddy ground. The rain comes down in sheets, stinging their faces and soaking them to the bone. Lina clutches her baskets tightly to her chest, her heart pounding with both exertion and fear. Lightning splits the sky, illuminating the drenched market for a brief, terrifying moment. By the time they reach the safety of their small lodging, their clothes are heavy with rain and their breaths come in ragged gasps. The storm howls outside, shaking the shutters and filling the air with the sound of nature's fury. Inside, Lina collapses onto the floor, her body trembling. "We made it," she whispers, though the relief in her voice is tinged with exhaustion. Saida sits across from her, staring at the flickering flame of a dim oil lamp. Her expression is unreadable, but Lina can feel the tension radiating from her. The storm outside mirrors the storm brewing between them, one that neither of them is ready to face yet. The next morning dawns reluctantly, as if the sun itself is hesitant to rise after the chaos of the night. The storm has left its mark on the village. Broken stalls, scattered goods, and puddles of muddy water dot the square. But despite the destruction, there's a renewed energy in the air. The villagers are already hard at work, sweeping debris and setting up decorations for the festival that will take place that evening. Lina steps outside their small lodging, her muscles aching from the strain of the previous day. The air smells fresh and earthy, the kind of scent that only comes after a storm. She stretches her arms and takes in the scene around her. The village square, though battered, is coming alive again. Children run barefoot through the puddles, their laughter cutting through the quiet morning. Women carry baskets of fruit and decorations, their colourful scarves fluttering in the breeze. Saida joins Lina outside, her expression guarded. She carries a basket filled with their work, the intricate weavings that had taken them weeks to complete. "The festival is still happening," Saida says quietly, nodding toward the square. "We should set up." Lina studies her friend's face, searching for a hint of the warmth that once defined their friendship. But Saida's eyes are distant, her thoughts clearly elsewhere. "We should," Lina agrees, though her heart feels heavy. They walk to the square in silence, the tension between them thick enough to cut. As they pass villagers greeting each other with smiles and laughter, Lina feels a pang of longing for the easy camaraderie she and Saida used to share. When they reach their stall, they begin setting up their baskets. Lina works quickly, arranging the colourful weavings in neat rows, while Saida moves more slowly, her movements mechanical. The festival is their chance to present their work to the entire village, but the joy of the occasion feels muted. Lina glances at Saida, wondering if they can truly put their differences aside. even for one day. By mid-morning, the festival is in full swing. The village square is alive with colour and sound. Stalls are draped with vibrant fabrics, and the air is filled with the mouth-watering scent of roasted maize and spiced tea. Drummers play a lively rhythm in the background, and children dart between the stalls, their laughter ringing out like music. Lina and Saida stand behind their stall, greeting customers and proudly showing off their work. For a brief moment, it feels like old times. Lina finds herself smiling as a young boy picks out a small woven basket, his face lighting up as his mother hands over a few coins. Even Saida seems to relax, her lips curving into a rare smile as she arranges the baskets on the table. But the moment of peace is short-lived. Lina feels a prickling sensation at the back of her neck, as if she's being watched. She turns her head slightly and sees him, Malaki. He stands at the edge of the square, his tall figure silhouetted against the vibrant stalls. His eyes are fixed on her, sharp and calculating. He doesn't approach, but his presence is enough to unsettle her. "He's still here," Lina whispers to Saida, her voice low and tense. Saida follows her gaze but doesn't react. Instead, she turns back to the stall, her expression carefully blank. "Ignore him," Saida says, her tone dismissive. But Lina can't shake the feeling that Malaki is up to something. His piercing gaze and the confident way he carries himself make it clear that he's not just another trader. He's waiting for something. Or someone. Lina's unease grows as the day goes on. She keeps catching glimpses of Malaki in the crowd, his eyes always on her or Saida. She tries to focus on their work, but the weight of his presence is like a dark cloud hanging over her. She wonders what he wants and how far he's willing to go to get it. As the festival reaches its peak, Lina tries to shake off her unease. She focuses on the customers, greeting them with warm smiles and showcasing their finest work. The villagers admire the baskets, their fingers brushing over the intricate patterns woven with care. For a while, Lina allows herself to feel a sense of pride. After all, this is what they've worked so hard for. Saida, on the other hand, is unusually charming, her words flowing effortlessly as she speaks with customers. She smiles more than usual, laughing at their jokes and praising their choices. But Lina notices something beneath her friend's cheerful exterior, an edge of tension, a glint in her eye that wasn't there before. It's almost as if Saida is performing, her warmth more calculated than genuine. "Are you okay?" Lina asks quietly during a lull in the crowd. Saida glances at her, her smile fading for a moment. "Of course," she replies too quickly. "Why wouldn't I be?" Lina wants to press further, but a loud burst of laughter draws her attention. A group of villagers has gathered around a nearby stall, their voices carrying over the music. Lina glances over and sees Malaki standing at the centre of the crowd, his golden robes catching the light. He's laughing, his deep voice commanding attention, but his eyes flicker toward their stall every few moments. He's waiting, Lina realises with a sinking feeling. But for what? Saida follows Lina's gaze and stiffens. For a moment, her cheerful facade cracks. "Don't let him get to you," she says sharply, her voice low. But Lina can't help noticing the way Saida's hands tremble as she arranges the baskets. As the sun begins to set, the festival takes on a different energy. The lively drumming grows louder, and villagers gather in the centre of the square to dance. Lanterns are lit, casting a warm glow over the stalls. Lina and Saida's table is nearly empty now, their baskets sold to eager customers. For a brief moment, Lina feels a flicker of hope. Perhaps the day can end on a good note after all. But then, Saida speaks. "We're running low on stock," she says, her voice clipped. "I'll stay here. Can you fetch the rest of the baskets from our room?" Lina hesitates. "It's getting dark," she says, glancing at the sky. "Are you sure you don't want to come with me?" Saida shakes her head. "I'll manage the stall. Just go. Her tone leaves no room for argument. Reluctantly, Lina sets off. The narrow path leading to their lodging is quieter than usual, the festive sounds fading behind her. As she walks, a strange feeling settles over her, a sense of being watched. She quickens her pace, her heart pounding. She's almost at the lodging when she hears it, a soft rustling in the bushes. She stops, her breath catching in her throat. "Who's there?" she calls, her voice trembling. There's no response. She takes a step forward, her eyes scanning the shadows. And then, out of nowhere, Malaki steps into view. "Lost?" he asks, his tone smooth and mocking. Lina's heart leaps into her throat. She takes a step back, but her foot catches on a root and she stumbles, dropping her basket. Malaki doesn't move, his piercing eyes fixed on her. "It's dangerous to wander alone," he says, his voice low. "You never know who you might run into." Back at the festival, Saida sits alone at the stall. The lantern light casts long shadows across her face, highlighting the conflict in her eyes. She glances toward the path Lina took, a knot of unease tightening in her chest. Something feels wrong, but she pushes the thought aside. Lina is capable, she tells herself. She'll be fine. But the minutes stretch into an hour, and Lina doesn't return. Saida fidgets with the edge of her shawl, her unease growing by the second. Finally, she stands, grabbing the lantern. The crowd around her seems oblivious to her inner turmoil, their laughter and music continuing as if nothing is amiss. As Saida makes her way down the path, her mind races. Memories of her and Lina flash through her mind, their first weaving lessons, their shared dreams of building something together, their late-night talks under the stars. But those memories are tainted by the bitterness she feels now, the sense of always being in Lina's shadow. Part of her wonders if this is her chance to step out of that shadow, to prove that she doesn't need Lina. But another part of her, a deeper, quieter part, knows she can't abandon her friend. Not like this. The night air is heavy, pressing against Saida as she steps deeper into the darkened path leading toward the thicket. The faint glow of her lantern flickers with every step, casting shadows that seem to dance ominously on the trees. Each rustling leaf, each distant hoot of an owl sends a chill down her spine. Her grip tightens on the lantern handle, her mind swirling with doubts and fear. What if Lina is fine? What if she's overreacting? But a stronger voice in her head urges her forward, a gnawing sense that something isn't right. As Saida approaches the edge of the thicket, she hears voices, low and steady, but unmistakably tense. She freezes, her breath catching in her throat. Slowly, she steps closer, her heart pounding in her chest. Through the shadows, she spots them. Lina sitting on the ground, her face pale and her body trembling. One leg is twisted awkwardly, her ankle swollen. Standing over her is Malaki, his tall frame cloaked in the faint moonlight filtering through the trees. "You need to understand," Malaki is saying, his voice smooth and composed. "This is how the world works. You can cling to your little village dreams, or you can rise above them. But you can't have both." Lina glares up at him, defiance flickering in her tear-filled eyes. "I don't need your world," she snaps, though her voice wavers. "I have my own." Malaki chuckles softly, shaking his head. "Your bravery is admirable, but misplaced. The world isn't kind to those who think they can stand alone." Saida's foot slips on a loose branch, and the sound makes Malaki's head snap toward her. His piercing gaze locks onto hers, and a slow smile spreads across his face. "Ah, Saida," he says warmly, as if greeting an old friend. "You're just in time." Saida steps into the clearing, her lantern casting light on the tense scene. Her eyes dart to Lina, who stares at her with a mixture of hope and fear. Saida's heart twists painfully. "What are you doing to her?" she demands, though her voice shakes slightly. Malaki raises his hands in mock innocence. Me? I'm merely offering her a chance to see the truth. But now that you're here, perhaps you can see it too. He steps closer to Saida, his presence overwhelming. This is your moment, he says, his voice dropping to a low, persuasive tone. Lina is holding you back. You know it. She shines so brightly that you're always in the shadows, but you don't have to be. Walk away now, and I'll give you everything you've ever wanted. Freedom, recognition, success, all yours. Saida's chest tightens as his words sink in. Deep down, she knows there's a part of her that has thought those very things. The envy she's tried so hard to suppress bubbles to the surface, and for a moment she falters. Her gaze shifts to Lina, who looks up at her with pleading eyes. Saida, Lina whispers, her voice trembling. Please, don't do this. The weight of the moment presses down on Saida like a physical force. Her mind races, torn between the temptation of Malaki's offer and the bond she shares with Lina. Her hand trembles, the lantern casting erratic shadows as her resolve wavers. Time seems to stretch endlessly as Saida stands frozen, the battle between loyalty and ambition raging within her. Saida takes a deep, shuddering breath, and something inside her snaps into place. Without thinking, she swings the lantern forward, its light illuminating Malaki's face in sharp relief. Stay away from her, she shouts, her voice breaking the silence like a thunderclap. Malaki steps back, his calm demeanour slipping for the first time. His dark eyes narrow as he studies her, his lips curling into a faint sneer. Very well, he says, his tone icy. But know this, Saida. Opportunities like this don't come twice. You've made your choice. He turns and disappears into the shadows, his golden robes briefly catching the light before he's gone. The thicket falls silent once more, save for the sound of Lina's laboured breathing. Saida rushes to her friend's side, dropping to her knees. Lina, I'm here, she says, her voice trembling. Lina looks up at her, tears streaming down her face. You hesitated, she whispers, her words cutting deeper than any accusation. Saida flinches, guilt washing over her like a wave. She tries to help Lina to her feet, but Lina pulls away slightly, her movement stiff and reluctant. Let me help you, Saida pleads, reaching for Lina's arm. This time, Lina doesn't resist, though her expression remains guarded. Saida supports her as they make their way back toward the village, the silence between them thick and suffocating. Each step feels heavier than the last, the weight of what just happened pressing down on both of them. By the time they reach their lodging, the festival is winding down. The distant sound of drums and laughter only deepens the quiet tension between them. Lina sinks onto the edge of her cot, her face pale and her body visibly drained. Saida lingers by the doorway, unsure of what to say. I almost didn't come, Saida admits finally, her voice barely above a whisper. I didn't know if I could. You almost didn't, Lina interrupts, her tone sharp but wary. She doesn't look at Saida, her gaze fixed on the floor. You left me there, Saida. You left me. The words hang in the air, heavy and unforgiving. Saida opens her mouth to respond, but no words come. What could she possibly say? That Malaki's offer had tempted her? That for a brief, terrible moment, she had considered walking away? The truth feels too raw, too ugly to admit. Lina finally looks up, her eyes filled with pain. I thought I knew you, she says, her voice breaking. But now, I'm not so sure. Saida feels the sting of those words like a physical blow. She wants to defend herself, to explain that she'd come back, that she had made the right choice in the end. But deep down, She knows that her hesitation has already caused irreparable damage. "I'm sorry," she says, her voice hollow. "I don't know what else to say." "Don't," Lina replies, her tone flat. She turns away, her body hunched as if to shield herself from further hurt. Saida watches her for a moment, then steps outside, the door creaking shut behind her. As she stands in the cool night air, Saida feels the weight of everything she's lost pressing down on her. The bond she and Lina once shared feels like a distant memory, replaced by a chasm that may never be bridged. For the first time, Saida wonders if Malaki was right, not about success, but about how easily trust can be shattered. The village sleeps, its vibrant festival reduced to scattered remnants of laughter and trampled decorations. Saida lingers outside their lodging, the cool air biting against her skin. She hugs her shawl closer, her thoughts spiralling. Malachi's voice echoes in her mind, smooth and persuasive. "You've made your choice." Opportunities like this don't come twice. She doesn't know how long she stands there, staring at the darkened square. The silence is oppressive, filled with the weight of decisions she can't undo. The image of Lina, hurt, trembling, yet still pleading, haunts her. Saida presses her hands to her face, stifling the frustrated scream building in her throat. Inside, Lina sits on the edge of her cot, absently rubbing her twisted ankle. The dim light of the oil lamp flickers, casting long, jagged shadows across the walls. Her heart aches, not just from the physical pain, but from the sting of betrayal. Saida's hesitation had been brief, but it was enough. Enough to crack the foundation of trust Lina thought was unshakable. She doesn't want to cry, but the tears come anyway, hot and relentless. "How could she?" Lina whispers to herself, her voice barely audible. The room feels too small, too suffocating, and yet she can't bring herself to leave. Not again. The memory of Malaki's predatory smile sends a shiver down her spine. She closes her eyes, willing the image away. But it lingers, sharp and vivid. Outside, Saida finally musters the courage to re-enter the room. She pushes the door open gently, her footsteps hesitant. Lina doesn't look up, but she doesn't move away either. The silence between them is heavy, filled with unspoken accusations and unexpressed regrets. Saida sits down on the other cot, keeping her distance. "I don't know how to fix this," Saida says finally, her voice barely above a whisper. Lina doesn't respond. She stares at the floor, her hands gripping the edge of the cot so tightly her knuckles turn white. Saida's words hang in the air, unanswered, as the distance between them grows even in the cramped room. The next morning, the village square is a flurry of activity as the remnants of the festival are cleaned up. Children chase each other through the muddy streets, their laughter bright and carefree, oblivious to the tension simmering beneath the surface. Vendors haul away empty crates, and the last of the lanterns are extinguished. Lina and Saida work side by side, gathering their unsold baskets. The silence between them is palpable, broken only by the rustle of woven reeds and the occasional clatter of dropped goods. Villagers pass by, greeting them warmly, but neither woman has the energy to respond with more than a nod. "Are you going to say something?" Lina asks suddenly, her voice sharp. Saida freezes, her hands hovering over a basket. "What do you want me to say, Lina? That I'm sorry. I am, but I don't think that's enough for you." Lina straightens, her eyes narrowing. "It's not about what's enough for me, Saida. It's about what you felt in that moment. Did you want to leave me there? Did you really think I wasn't worth saving?" Saida flinches as if struck. "It wasn't like that," she says quietly. I didn't know what to do. Malaki's words, they got into my head. He made me question everything." "That's the problem, Saida," Lina snaps, her voice rising. You let him get into your head. You let him convince you that I'm your enemy when all I've ever done is try to be your friend. Saida's jaw tightens, her fists clenching at her sides. You don't understand, she says through gritted teeth. You've always had everything, Lina. Everyone loves you, admires you. I've spent my whole life fighting to be seen. For once, I wanted to shine. And you think betraying me is how you get there? Lina retorts, her voice thick with emotion. If that's the kind of success you want, Saida, then maybe you don't deserve it. The words hang between them like a sword, cutting deeper with every passing second. Saida turns away, her chest heaving with anger and hurt. She grabs the last of the baskets and walks off without another word, leaving Lina standing alone in the square, her heart heavy with disappointment. As the day wears on, Lina tries to focus on their work, but her mind keeps drifting back to the confrontation. The festival may be over, but the storm between her and Saida rages on, unresolved and unrelenting. She can't shake the feeling that something deeper is at play, something bigger than just their fractured friendship. Her suspicions are confirmed when she sees Malaki again. He's standing near the edge of the square, speaking with a group of traders. His presence is commanding, his every gesture exuding confidence and control. But Lina sees through the facade now. She knows what he's really after. Power, manipulation, control. As if sensing her gaze, Malaki turns and meets her eyes. His smile is cold, calculating. But there's something else there too. A challenge. Lina's hands tighten into fists at her sides. She won't let him win. Not after everything he's done to her and Saida. But as much as she wants to confront him, she knows she can't do it alone. She needs Saida. The thought fills her with dread. How can she ask for Saida's help when their trust is already in pieces? And yet, she knows she has no choice. If they don't stand together, Malaki will tear them both apart. That evening, Lina finds Saida sitting alone by the riverbank, the fading light casting a golden glow over the water. She approaches cautiously, her footsteps soft against the grass. Saida doesn't look up, but Lina knows she's aware of her presence. We need to talk, Lina says, her voice steady but quiet. Saida sighs, her shoulders slumping. What's there to say? You've made it clear what you think of me. Lina sits down beside her, leaving a small but significant space between them. I don't hate you, Saida, she says after a moment. I'm angry, yes, hurt. But I don't hate you, I don't understand why you let him get to you. Saida's hands tighten in her lap, her gaze fixed on the rippling water. Because he told me what I've always been afraid to admit, she says softly. That I'm not enough. That I'll never be enough unless I take what's being offered. Lina's heart aches at the pain in Saida's voice. That's not true, she says firmly. You're more than enough, Saida. You always have been. You just don't see it. Saida finally looks at her, her eyes filled with tears. Then why does it feel like I'm always second best? She whispers. Lina reaches out, placing a hand on Saida's shoulder. Because you're looking for validation in the wrong places. Malaki doesn't care about you, Saida. He doesn't care about either of us. All he wants is to use us. And if we let him, we'll lose everything. Saida nods slowly, her tears spilling over. For the first time, the anger between them gives way to something else. Something fragile but real. They sit together in silence, the river's gentle flow filling the space between them. The bond they once shared isn't fully healed, but it's a start. And for now, that's enough. Thank you for being part of this incredible journey with Lina and Saida. The tension is rising, and the next episode will be packed with even more drama, suspense, and unexpected twists. Don't miss out. Make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so you'll be the first to know when the next chapter unfolds. We'd also love to hear your thoughts. What do you think about Saida's choice? How do you feel about Malaki's plans? Share your ideas and predictions in the comments below, and let's keep the conversation going. Your insights mean so much to us.